Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to USVA History Review by SOL Standard. I'm glad you keep coming back. I know that these have been helping you out, or else you wouldn't be here. Today we're going to take a look at Standard 8A. Standard 8A is a lot, so we're going to get right back into it. At the end, there are going to be some activities, so stick around for those. All right, without further ado, we are getting into Standard 8A right now. That includes westward expansion, immigration, and then the growth of the cities after a bunch of those things there. So we'll start with westward movement. After the Civil War, which we talked about last time, settlers are going to be moving out to the west in massive droves. They're just going to be going out there, a lot of them to start new lives after the Civil War, and they're just leaving all the craziness that's happening on the East Coast. This era is known as the American cowboy. They're going to drive cattle out there. Cattle farming is going to become a huge thing in the American West, and it's going to sort of be the epitome of what's happening out there at that time. People are going to make tons and tons of money off the cattle industry. The one big thing that really drives the westward expansion for all people is going to be the Homestead Act. The Homestead Act is a big thing here that you need to know, and it gives away free land in the Western Territories to anybody who could make it out there. So essentially, if you could walk out there, if you could get in your wagon and get out there, get on your horse and get out there, you could get free land. All you had to pay was a small filing fee, and you could essentially start a new life. As you can imagine, African Americans were going out there in large capacity to get away from all the stuff that's happening over in the East with the Civil War. So it's an incredible piece of legislation that passes. Other Southerners that are leaving, besides African Americans, are trying to leave because they don't want the government touching them anymore. They don't want the government telling them what to do. So they're going out there as well. With this new movement, you have new technologies. People are getting their own farms. They're working on their own farms for some of them the first time. And they're going to start building things like the mechanical reaper. This is going to help grow wheat a lot easier and faster, as well as other crops. Another big invention that is going to fuel this huge western expansion is the railroad. Two railroad companies are going to come together. And essentially, and what they do is create the first transcontinental railroad, and this is going to be a huge step for America as our East Coast and West Coast are now combined. After this whole area, by the 1900s, we finally see that the Great Plains and Rocky Mountains regions of the West are now a growing and a large part of the American economy. Towns all over the place in the West start sprouting up on railroad lines. Things can get shipped back and forth really quickly from the East Coast and the West Coast, and you see the West as becoming not so much an uncharted territory anymore, but now a distinct part of America. With this, as we've seen so many times before, we obviously do see American Indians being forced onto what will become reservations. After Andrew Jackson forced these Native Americans out into the West, now that more American citizens that are not Native Americans are going out there, now they are going to be forced to become onto these small reservations. And obviously not very profitable ones at that. All right, let's begin talking about immigration. Immigration takes many forms during this time, and a lot of different people coming from all over the world are going to come. So let's talk about that. Before 1871, talking about old immigrants, these are mostly coming from the British Islands, Great Britain, Germany, Norway, and Sweden. So mostly North and Western Europe. Predominantly white, and for the most part Christians coming, so very homogeneous to what Americans looked like at that time, save slaves and Native Americans. But after the Civil War, and primarily after 1871, we see a large influx of Southern and Eastern Europeans coming, and we see we're going to call these new immigrants, coming from places like Italy, Greece, Poland, Russia, and culturally and ethnically they're different than the old immigrants, for lack of a better term. We're also going to see some Asians coming in for the first time in large numbers, the Chinese and the Japanese. Now, the Chinese are going to come a little bit earlier than 1871 to help in the building of specifically the western part of the railroad, and they bring things like dynamite to help blow through the Rocky Mountains. But they're going to come in larger droves afterwards until they're eventually not allowed to come in anymore. These immigrants, they're coming to America for the reasons that many immigrants still come to America, and that's for freedom in all senses of the term, and then better lives for their families as well. Obviously, immigrants are coming here. They're making valuable contributions to a growing economy, and they're going to fuel our labor force for most of the late 19th and the early 20th century, and up until today. Obviously, like I already said, Chinese workers are going to help to build the Transcontinental Railroad. Immigrants worked in the textile and steel mills in the Northeast, primarily Pittsburgh, think Pittsburgh Steelers, New York City, places like that. Slavs, Italians, and Poles are going to be working in coal mines in the East, that hard work. And these immigrants are going to be working for lower pay than American citizens at the time. And you can parallel that to today, what's happening with migrant workers in all parts of America at the time. Also, with the low pay, they're also working in harsh working conditions. All the while making America's industry and economy grow and grow and grow and grow. Immigrants coming from Europe primarily go to New York City through Ellis Island. You can remember Europe, Ellis Island, while most Asians were coming through Angel Island, which is in San Francisco. You think Asians, Angel, AA. That's an easy way to remember it there. The first view was the Statue of Liberty. For some reason, the SOLs really want you to know that. So if you can think of New York and the Statue of Liberty, hope you got that. America is going to become known as the melting pot during this time period, and this is the reason why. 20 million immigrants are going to go through both Ellis and Angel Island during this time period, and that's a whole lot of new people. And they're going to bring their cultures, they're going to bring their languages, they're going to bring their practices with them, and therefore we're going to become known as the melting pot. Most immigrants coming at this time are going to settle in ethnic neighborhoods. You can think Chinatown, you can think Little Italy when you think about this, and maybe even your own neighborhood today. That neighborhoods look like the same kind of people. Now, some today definitely do not look like that, but you can definitely tell with some of your neighbors maybe. Most immigrants during this time are going to assimilate. That word assimilation here means to Americanize. They're going to adopt American practices, going to start learning English. Some are going to convert to Christianity and learn in American schools. That's a big thing, is the public school system is going to serve as a role for them to become ingrained into American society. Like we see today, like we see here back in the late 19th century, is people do not like immigrants. A resentment grows because of this. They're going to take jobs away from Americans. They're going to earn less money and therefore kick Americans out of work. And also that they're different culturally. They speak different languages. They practice different religions, and therefore people do not like, Americans specifically do not like immigrants coming in to the country. Congress is going to show this resentment when they pass the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and the Immigration Restriction Act of 1921. Essentially, after 1921, we cut off ties with the outside world. We do not want to have immigrants come here. We step out of a foreign policy, coming very introverted during the 1920s, which we'll learn about in Standard 9. And we shut ourselves off from the world, essentially. All right, last bit of this is the growth of cities, and that's a big word for urbanization. Think urban, suburban, when you think that. As the industry is growing and the economy is growing, cities like Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, New York, and Pittsburgh are going to grow rapidly because of steel mills, coal mines, textile factories, and we know this today from those cities being major centers even today. They're going to provide lots and lots of work, but because of how fast urbanization happens in America, people are going to end up living in very terrible conditions. They're going to start living in tenements and slums, which are essentially apartment buildings split into two for two different families to live in, sharing a bathroom. Very tiny. You might have 8, 10, 15, 20 people in one modern day apartment building, and that's just the start of it. Obviously, we have housing shortages. That's why they have to build tenements and slums so quickly. Sewage and water systems are going to be non-existent at the beginning, but the massive urbanization is going to call for things such as a sewer system and public water systems and all this kind of new public transportation. New York City is going to be the first to construct a subway system. It's going to be around 1900, but there are people coming in the 1870s through 1900 that do not have these luxuries. So it's going to be a major issue until that time period. I lied. Last thing is the admission of new states. With all these people moving out west, new states are going to form, and they're going to ask Congress to become, and by the turn of the 20th century, you can start to see the modern day map of America is taking shape, and until we get Alaska and Hawaii, the contiguous 48 is going to happen right around the turn of the century, and all states had been admitted at the time. Okay, we went through all the information. Now let's take a look at a couple of exercises for you to do at home. So take a look at these questions, take a look at this chart. I would suggest pausing, taking a picture, looking over this, doing it, and I'm going to have the answers for you in just a couple of seconds. Like I said, here are the answers for those questions there. Again, check your answers over. Make sure that you're doing these and not just taking the answers. You're going to learn best from doing these. Okay, so take a minute, take a look at that, take a picture if you need to. Going on to the next one. Again, here's another one. I suggest here taking a picture and answering the questions on your own. And here are the answers again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed standard number 8A. Big standard. Took about as much time as all the other ones do. Come back for the rest of standard 8, and I hope you do well. Hope this helped. Have a good one.